Good morning, I'm Tom from Ledgemere Farm, and today I'm going to give a quick review on my 2018 John Deere X590i Gator. This Gator was my second UTV that I bought here at the farm. The first was an S4 550, and I had some problems with that, particularly the shift cable and the transmission, the clutch. So I traded. That was a 2015. I traded for this in 2018, and I've got about 100 hours on it so far, and it has gone back to the dealer one time for the same issue as the 550, which was the shift cable. Now, we use our equipment here on a farm as you know most people would on a farm. It gets used but not abused, so we don't baby our stuff, but we do take good care of it. It's always kept under cover. We're not jamming the shifter, we're not going mudding and doing rooster tails and everything else with it. We're using it as a farm vehicle. So the fact that at less than a year old, the shift cable went out on it was a little disappointing. And so far this year, knock on wood, I haven't had that issue. And one thing I've done, and John Deere didn't tell me to do this, I'm hoping just on my own accord. When I park it in neutral, and I set the parking brake. Also, when I go to shift it forward or reverse, if there's any resistance in that shifter, we kind of rock the vehicle a little bit. And if it's in forward, we go ahead a little bit. If it's in reverse, we go back a little bit, and then that'll free the shifter up. And that linkage is just a bicycle cable, for lack of better terms, that goes from the shifter underneath the floorboards and back here to the transmission, and it's just on a little lever on the transmission. So what happens is the little end is just crimped on where the shifter is. It breaks right off the cable, and it's not repairable. You have to tear the whole thing out and rebuild it. I did do this once myself, and to be honest with you, it's not something I ever want to do again. You have to tear the whole front, the floors out, and the dashboard out, and you're in uncomfortable positions. And so yeah, you could save a few dollars doing it yourself, but the pain I experienced with my back after doing this was not worth it. It was worth the service call. Fortunately, John Deere at the time did warranty the service, so again, knock on wood, I haven't had that issue since then. The second problem I had with it was soon after I bought it. The fuse panel and everything is right under the passenger side seat, and so there's a lot of wiring that comes in there, and I must have hit a stick or something in the field, and it came up and it actually broke the wire off that controls the fan for the liquid cooled. There's a radiator here. This is a liquid cooled engine, and I had quite a bit of experience with electronics in the military, so I was able to pretty quickly diagnose the problem and repair it myself. But it was a little discouraging that something that is designed as a utility vehicle to be taken off-road could be brought to its knees so quickly by a stick underneath. This does have some plating underneath, skid plates and everything, but that one area apparently is pretty vulnerable. A couple of things I bought with it when I got it was the winch. It's an absolute necessity as far as I'm concerned. We use this winch all the time. We pull out some small logs with it sometimes. If I cut a tree and it goes over the stone wall and you can't really get to it with a tractor, the winch works really great for that. There's been a couple of times where I've gotten it stuck and the winch was great for recovery, or I've had another piece of machinery that was stuck and we used the winch to pull it out. So in my mind, a winch is almost, I wouldn't buy one of these without a winch because it's just so important. We did get the brush guard on the front, and I don't want to, this is all poly, and I'm just afraid that without that, even trying to be careful, that this would be destroyed. John Deere calls this John Deere Loy, I think, and it's not supposed to dent, it doesn't rust, but the experience I've had with this in the past with lawn and garden tractors is that if it's exposed to the elements, the sun, it does get brittle, and then it shatters, and so you're left with either duct taping the parts back together or buying a new hood. And from my experience with lawn and garden equipment, that is not a cheap replacement. So it's like, you know, 6 of one, half dozen the other. You either get rust and dents or you get broken plastic. It came with these a little bit knobbier tires, these off-road tires and the rims. It wasn't something that I was out to get, but I have noticed that the traction on them is exceptional. And it did come with a roof. I bought the windshield and the back rest here. It's like a guard for the bed. And in my mind, with the application that we're using here, sometimes you have to run up to the road. We have other pastures about a mile up the road, and it's a dead-end road, dirt roads, and particularly in the cold, without the windshield, just the air against your face makes my eyes water, or my glasses fog up, or whatever. So I don't have any trouble with keeping this clean. I don't get mud all over it. So the windshield, in my mind, was a worthwhile investment. I don't have doors. I don't have a full cab. I didn't think that was necessary because we're getting in and out of it so much. The roof, sometimes we're out working in the pastures and it sprinkles, and it's sunny. It just gives us a place to take a break. We can sit in there and get out of the elements for a few minutes. The bed on the back is a manual dump, and it's balanced such that I've never had an issue unloading it. We've put, piles of rocks, piles of wood, and it's very simple to dump. It does have a Reese hitch on the back, and I have one of those John Deere 21 utility trailers, steel trailers, and so when we go fencing, we'll typically hook that trailer up on the back, and we've got the back of the Gator with barbed wire and tools that we need, and then the trailer is full of fence posts. So it's really a great setup for fencing. Some people get the bigger John Deere Gators, and I wanted the smaller one just because when we moved here, everything was so overgrown that there wasn't a lot of space to get through, and it's really ledgy and rocky. So I have found that the small size vehicle right here has been excellent for maneuverability and get me where I want to go. Now my cat here, Pearl, she loves to sit on seats, so she's come up here to pay us a visit. The gas tank is here. It's got a fuel gauge. It has full instrumentation in here, which is kind of neat. A tachometer, hour meter, the clock. Some people have complained about the clock not keeping great time. I haven't found that to be an issue. The only thing that's an issue is sometimes I forget when you change the clocks forward or back, how to actually change the clock, but I have the manual, so it only takes a couple minutes. Four-wheel drive, it has low range, which locks the back wheels in. There's two-wheel drive, there's four-wheel drive, and then there's differential lock. And so the differential lock will actually lock the two back wheels together, and then you've got one or the other front wheel, so it's really a three-wheel drive, depending upon where the torque is spinning. Typically you don't want to put it in differential lock in the back because it makes it a little difficult to steer. Now speaking of steering, this did come with power steering, and the 550 I had did not have power steering. I found that the power steering is a real lifesaver, because when you're maneuvering and you're turning the wheel a lot, and without power steering, if you're moving, it's not a big deal, but when you're parked or you're trying to jockey in the position, that power steering is great. And also, it has like a cushion in there. The hydraulics in the steering will act as a cushion, so if you're tooling out through the woods or across the field and you hit something, that steering wheel's not jerked around and your thumbs don't get broken. So the one complaint I had about lighting was these are useless. These lights aren't worth a dang. They don't light up very much, and you can buy upgrade lights from John Deere. They're super expensive, and to be honest with you, when I'm working in the dark, I'm just using this. It's a magnetic spotlight. It's 100,000 candle power, and we're not out here spotting deer or anything, so don't worry about that. But if I'm working at night, I can shine that forward and get out of the fields or the woods where I am. Or if we're working behind it at night, sometimes we're finishing up something and I can turn that on. You do want to leave the engine running with that kind of candle power though, because it'll drain the battery. And the battery and everything is very easily accessible. Right here under the seat lifts up. There's a little toolbox. You can check the oil here. Battery, fuse box, like I've said. There's two cup holders. The glove box is pretty roomy. I have the control for the winch in there, and I keep tools like my file for my for my chainsaws, a couple of screwdrivers for my chainsaws, a wrench, just you know, the stuff you would take when you're cutting wood. And so this back thing right here, I've got a bunch of bungee cords on it, and we have a bulk tank or a drop tank that we use to water the livestock down back in the summer, so we can bungee that on there. It's a 35-gallon tank. Sometimes I'll strap grain on there. It's a really great size. I mean, it's not huge, but it does have these little rails here you can strap stuff on. We've hauled wood in it, but typically I'm not hauling a lot of weight in it. It's mostly a utility vehicle where I'm just hauling supplies. You know, I'm going out to cut wood, not bring the wood back. So I've got my tools in there, go cut the wood. I got my, you know, my water and everything else. There's storage under here, so I've got a chain and a recovery strap, some shackles and things like that if I do get into a bind. Overall, you know, I'm pretty happy with it. I think, you know, it's a good fit, and it's worked out well. I am a little apprehensive about the cable going out again because, you know, it's 3 times, you know, 2 in the other one and 1 in this one, so I am a little concerned about that. And, you know, the price was about 11 grand, I think, with the accessories. So it's not a you know, a cheap vehicle. It's not something you're just going to go drop a couple grand and buy. But I think the quality is pretty well made. It has a liquid cooled engine, and the engine actually is Cherry, which is made in China. I've never heard of it before. I guess John Deere uses them pretty exclusively in their UTVs. The 550 had a Briggs & Stratton. I think it was an 18 horsepower. This one is 32 horsepower, liquid cooled, and it runs well. It starts right up. Sometimes you run it and it stalls and it doesn't want to start back up, so I set the parking brake, hold the brake down, and you hold the gas pedal down for a second, kind of like an old carbureted car. You know, back in the 70s, sometimes you'd with the automatic chokes, you'd hold the accelerator down for a second and then let off and the car would start. It's similar with this, and so you know, I was used to that. My first car was a 78 Ford. So when I just decided to try that, it solved the problem. But typically it doesn't stall. It runs great, starts right up, even in cold, no problems. The power is great. It'll go 50 miles an hour down the road, but I don't really need to. I'm not hitting the trails with it. I'm not going through brooks. I'm not trail riding. I'm farming with it. And so, you know, for that application, I think it's really great. And, you know, hopefully this video has helped you in your decision to buy one. I think the new one is not an I think it's an E. So I'm not sure what the differences are, but it's been a good piece of machinery, and overall I'm happy with it. But hopefully this has helped you out in your decision to buy a UTV. Thank you. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe. Thanks.